Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good and the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and hey, you know what it is? It's a great show. Why? Because it's the Buff, and we are back here again. With me tonight is I'm pleased to say it is Harry again. Harry, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've been back after a brief hiatus. 1 or 2 weeks? No, but it's good to be back in the seat.
Yeah, I think it was 1 week, 2 weeks. I don't know. It depends.
But, I don't think I could have said anything as well as you did for that Rocky episode.
Well, it was, let me just touch a little bit on Rocky again, because I had forgotten how good that movie was. And it seems bizarre to me because I didn't recognize that when I was a little kid. It is really good. And it is, hey, if you want, this is your first episode, go listen to last week where we talked about the movie Rocky and the virtue that's found therein. And you know what? Listen to all the old episodes, because that's a great thing, and you can catch up to where we are.
And then give us a 5-star review.
Bingo.
And I think you get...
I get pudding,
and I get chocolate chip cookies.
Yes, and Zach gets brownies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? And because of you listeners, we are a global top 10% podcast, and you can reach us at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. If you got a question or something you want to know, feel free to throw it at us. And if it's appropriate, or sometimes if it's not appropriate, we'll do either of those things here. And if you are new to the podcast, remember, listen to the Rocky last week, and welcome. We're glad you're here. Give us the Rocky episode and some more, and we'll give you the reason to come back and tell a friend to listen and get a free episode and subscribe and all those things. And we'll get to today's topic. And today's topic, Harry, I think I sent you this, and this comes off the interwebs, where a lot of topics, sometimes I spend my time outside walking around. Sometimes I mow the lawn. Sometimes I sit and read. And sometimes I think. And sometimes I watch TV. And sometimes I read the interwebs and the news that's on there. And I read a thing by a guy named Sanfedisti. And Sanfedisti talked a little bit about architecture, and he says the following things. He says, this week I want to talk about something that is rarely brought up, and I want to talk about the concept of a wonder. And I will consider a wonder to be any building or complex of structures which, undertaken at one time, is understood by the society or people building it that it will not be completed within the lifetime of the architect, the benefactor, or the laborers. In essence, a great project. For much of human history, the building of wonders was, ironically, rather commonplace. The Cologne Cathedral, for example, famously took over 600 years to fully complete. This is, for modern people, an unfathomable length of time.
Yeah, can you imagine building something? Imagine building your house that you're building right now, and you don't get to see it completed.
Well, not only do you not get to see it completed, there is no expectation by you, anyone there, that either you or your kids or your grandkids will complete that project.
Well, and it's not even bureaucratic, right? It's not like all these laws and red tape is tripping you up. The scale of the building of which you are building is just that grandiose.
And I think this concept that a great wonder will take longer than any individual person. Part of that is the concept that they couldn't build quite as fast as we do now.
Sure.
Right? I mean, we have, we can dig really fast with big diggers, right? And we have big cranes that can go really, really high. And we even have the ability to build special cranes to build special buildings. Okay, look at the things we take, I'm going to talk about the Arch in St. Louis, right? I love the Arch in St. Louis. And it is if you ever get a chance to watch the documentary movie, go to St. Louis, go to the basement of that building, watch the movie, and then go up in the Arch. You can go up inside the Arch. It took a long time to complete, and they had to build a special kind of crane that crawled up the outside of this thing and put the next layer on as it went up. But even that's a long project, and it took, I don't know, it took somewhere between 3 and 10 years. Harry, it only took 10 years from when Kennedy laid down, less than 10 years before he said, before this decade is out, we'll put a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. That took less than
yeah, that's just an incredible feat. And that's like 4 or 5 other podcast episodes.
Yeah. So, but they had every expectation. Everybody working on the project said, yes, we're going to work on that. It's not like I'm going to get part way on this project and then hand it off to my kids. The only thing I can think of that magnitude of a new thing would be, we're going to go, not only, you can go to Mars. You can't really go to Saturn or Jupiter because they're just balls of gas. So it'd be like if we sent people to like a distant star, and then we knew that they weren't going to get there, that their grandkids would be the one that would get. Think about, that's kind of the concept that he's talking about here. And they're talking about the cathedral in Cologne that it took 600 years to complete. And like I said, this is unfathomable to think of. We're building a house, and it's taken a little over a year, but the same people who started on it finishing, same guys, we're still here. Have you worked on anything? Have you done anything of that magnitude?
No, I haven't. No, I can't even think of anything. I've built some Lego sets. It might take me an afternoon.
Yeah, an afternoon. But you've done some things that are bigger. Like we worked on that little deck project over the course of a couple days.
Yep, that's right.
All right, so that's a thing. But you're not. Go ahead.
So I was thinking about that because I figured that you would bring that up here.
The deck?
Stairs to the deck, right? And at the end, like we realize it's not perfect, and there might be some attunements and adjustments that might be necessary.
Yep.
But we didn't just slap some stairs together.
Right.
And so what I'm getting at here is we didn't just slap it together. And we also didn't spend 20 years building it. We were somewhere in between.
Yep.
So what that means is when there was a problem, we went out and we figured out how to solve the problem. Right? Some weird Pythagorean math of square steps.
Mm-hmm.
We determined what was the proper solution. We determined which were the right tools. And we did all of those things in real time. And we thought our project would take a day and a half, and it ended up being 3 or 4 days, mostly due to rain. But it still took us some time. So if you transfer that to a grand scale, you can see how some of these projects take years. And the wonders that survived are the ones that were done right.
Right. And so, think about each of those little problems that we had building the deck. We're like, well, we need to put these hangers on there to hang the stringers. And but if you go to Lowe's, they have the hangers, right? Mm-hmm. And they have the screws for them. And we have the drill that allows us the what's it called? The percussion, what's it called?
Impact.
The impact driver. Yeah. We have the impact driver, which does that stuff. And so we have those things now. A lot. And think of if you're building a skyscraper or even a house that you can, when these guys come and they pour the footings for your house or they pour the concrete walls, they have forms, and the forms come on a truck and they piece them together like Lego chunks that allow them to come in and out in a couple days and pour your concrete walls instead of having to, from scratch. I don't know what you would do. Would you have to go dig up your own lime, make your own mortar, make your own concrete, haul the gravel from the quarry? All that stuff is automated now, so it goes a lot faster. But I think there are some things that we do, we being
society,
modernity. There are some things we do that take a long time. There's still some things, okay. And I'm thinking like we do things like age certain foods relatively long periods of time, like cheese.
Whiskey.
Okay. Whiskey, right. Some whiskeys and some wine, like 20 years, right? Something like, don't they let them, aren't certain whiskeys or wines aged for like 20 years in oak barrels, something like that?
30 years, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a thing actually that you might start, and your kid or your whoever follows you along wood finish that's whiskey we put in that barrel in 2004, and we will pull it out. I don't know when I'm old and 2040, something like that. So that's the thing. I thought is there are some things like I wrote down wine, cheese, and whiskey, but there's they say that the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago.
Oh, right.
Right? 25 years ago. But the second best time to plant a tree is right now, because it will be 25 years ago in 25 years, and somebody will. So
I think there's this, and going off that, I'm sure I've seen a comic, or some other listeners have seen the comic of a man plants a tree. It's a little baby tree, and his son's a little baby next to him. And then the tree is a teenage tree.
sapling,
sure. And the kid is 10, 11 years old. And the dad is aging, right? And then the tree is in full maturity,
mm-hmm.
and now providing shade. And
for the young man and his kids.
Married, right?
Yeah.
And there's grandpa in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And the last image is a full-blown oak covering the entire house, full of shade. And the man's not there. He doesn't get to see the fruits of his labor. Right.
He doesn't get to see it. And that's, I was going to say, that's a planting the tree thing. I thought you were going to say cuts down the tree, makes the coffin.
Sure.
But yeah, I've seen that. And that's the thing to think about. They say you never plant a tree for yourself. You always plant it for the next generation. And you have to thank the one that came before us. But there's some other things that are going on for so being an aspiring woodworker, I will say, we also, the most expensive part of the very expensive hobby of woodworking is the wood itself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great woods here in the U.S. is walnut. It's great stuff. And we had some walnut trees on the lot that we had to cut down to put the house up, but I saved some of those boards and I've made some parts for the house from them. But one of the great trees of the American heartland was the chestnut tree. Have you ever seen a chestnut tree?
No, I was going to say elm.
Well, elm. I think elms were great trees, but they're all gone now because of Dutch elm disease,
yep.
Which may or may not be from the Dutch. I'm sure that was, or maybe it is. I don't have any idea. But they were pretty much wiped out or greatly reduced. But the chestnuts are also suffering from a chestnut blight, and these chestnut trees used to be these gigantic hardwood trees all the way from Boston to Omaha were chestnuts in the hardwood forest. I mean, they were everywhere. And the chestnut blight came and just destroyed the American chestnut tree. And it hasn't killed the tree, apparently. Mm-hmm. It makes it so the tree doesn't get very big, and then it branches fall off because of the blight, and it never is able to grow and reach any sort of dominance. So it's not the tree that it once was. And I read that there was a guy in Delaware who was hiking and found a native chestnut tree living all by itself in this woods, and nobody knew about it. And there was this big secret,
yeah,
because the tree is really, really valuable. But here's the point to that: is the chestnut tree, the blight came from overseas, as all blights do. And these, you're right, you get invasive species come in, and that's been happening forever. And the Chinese chestnut is actually immune to the blight.
Okay.
But apparently it doesn't grow. It's not quite the same tree. But they have been, there's now a push to plant hybrid Chinese American chestnut trees that are blight resistant, right? But they're not 1-to-1 hybrids.
Okay.
They are 15-to-1 hybrids. All right. So in order to get an American Chinese chestnut tree that is 1/16 Chinese chestnut and 15/16 American chestnut, you have to take an American chestnut and cross it with a Chinese chestnut, and then take that thing and cross it with an American chestnut. That gives you 4-to-1, yep. Right? And then cross it again.
8.
And then cross that again.
Then you're 15-to-1. Yep.
And now you're 15-to-1. and then you make, I don't know if you make cuttings, all right, which is great, except they're all clones,
Yep.
right? Which can be dangerous. It's really great, or it's dangerous. But in order to get that, in order to cross, because you have to crossbreed them to get a chestnut, which you plant and grow to maturity, which takes a long time.
Oh, and you're hoping that the chestnut itself isn't eaten up in the ground.
Yeah, right. So you have to grow it in a growing place where it's safe from things like squirrels, and so you have to grow up 4 generations of trees just to get to the starting point, and then you can make the chestnuts, and I don't know exactly what the big grand plan is, but they're starting to plant these now.
Okay.
For your grandkids.
Yeah.
They're planting them for your grandkids so that your grandkids can have chestnuts roasting by the open fire.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. And that process has to have been in play for at least 50 years.
Decades.
And so there's a thing that we are kind of doing with chestnuts. And so I think there's this, going back to the tweet here from this guy. He talks about the cathedral at Cologne, and he says St. Basil's Cathedral took 123 years to build. York Minster took 252 years. Petra, you know what Petra is? That's in the third Raiders of the Lost Ark movie when they go and that's where they find Indy's dad in that carved out thing. That's Petra, okay? And it was this city in the middle of nowhere, in this place that has now become a dry desert. That took 600 years to carve out of the rock. He says these projects are incomprehensible to us today, so much so that people are quick to say, well, if they'd have had modern materials, then it would be easy.
Sure.
But the thing is, had they used modern materials, we never would have heard about them because they would be dust by now. The things we build now, this house that is being built now, that I'm spending all our time and effort and worry about, and it's taken a whole year to build, it'll last 100 years, maybe 150, maybe. And we just don't build them like that. And there's got to be virtue, he says. There's virtue in building something to last beyond one's own waking life. The people we came from understood this. Wonders are evidence that a society has a proper understanding of the individual and the transcendent. To commit time, effort, labor, resources, and riches to the construction of something which everyone involved with will never see is a triumph of the human spirit. The self-absorbed, materialist hedonist cannot understand the idea of a wonder, unless perhaps it's a statue of his likeness. But a building, a social square, a dedication to God, these things never cross our mind anymore. And I think that's an interest, like, other than the chestnut tree, what are we building? Are we really building?
I can't really think of anything.
What are we doing now?
Please, somebody email in and tell us.
Well, if you're doing something, we want to hear about that. Like, think about, okay, they just recently, Yankee Stadium is celebrating its 100th anniversary season this year. Did you know that?
Okay. Did not.
But it's not the Yankee Stadium anymore because that one was torn down and they built a new one. Somewhere in the last 20 years, they built a new Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, right.
Which was not the Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built. It's not the same one. They moved it and changed it, and it's now different, and it's across the street or something like that. It's not the same, and that's only 100 years. Fenway Park's still standing. I think it's the oldest one, and I think Wrigley Field is quite that old. We just don't build them for really, really, really longevity anymore.
Yeah,
I guess
we build things for use, not for testament.
Yes, we do. All right. And this guy goes on to say, in the aftermath of the Notre Dame Cathedral fire in Paris, I was approached by someone who asked my opinion on what was to be done. It cannot be restored, they say, because the trees of the size used in the original rafters no longer exist anywhere in the world. So that's one of the things about rebuilding Notre Dame in Paris. They said we can't do it like they did before because we don't have trees that big. How will we do it? And this guy says, well, that's not a problem. Here's what you do. You take one of the local parks there in Paris and you turn it into a tree nursery. And you keep the trees there and you grow them for however long it takes, 300 years or more. And then at that time, you harvest the trees and you restore the cathedral to exactly how it was. It doesn't matter that we won't see it. All that matters is that it was done right. And that to me was an amazing thought, that we would think to do something that might take so long that we would never see its fruition.
That has something to be said for like our society that wants immediate gratification, right? Isn't the modern world all about immediate gratification? You can look wherever you want. You don't need to get married. You can go hook up with whoever you want. You don't need to work hard to earn a salary. You can get a get rich quick scheme.
Buy a lottery ticket. Yeah, you can get any of those things. And I have to say, I am as much a victim of that, or a purveyor of that, as anybody. I mean, look at what we do to speed things along. The frozen dinners, we talked about that. 6 minutes. Who's got that kind of time? All right. And I'm starting to think, as I'm closely getting to this retirement thought, is what would it be like to live in that way, where things like, it doesn't matter what time it is in the day. You know, nighttime's coming, the sun will set the west, and then you'll go to bed and you'll get up the next day and you'll do it again. What if you were completely off the clock?
I think time would slow down.
You think so? You think you'd have more?
I think time would slow down. Think about it. If I go out and I spend the entire afternoon with the kids, it'll probably feel like a really long time, right? But I mean, I think the same thing is true if you're harvesting potatoes or taking care of the cows or collecting eggs.
It feels like a long time.
It feels like a long time.
But if that's all you have, like, so that's the question then. What are you doing? Like, we have all of this efficiency now. I have a lot of efficiency. I have machines in my workshop that can make dovetails in a heartbeat, even though the master craftsman can do it with his saw and faster than I can set up my machine, right? And we can thaw things and freeze things fast, and I can order something on Amazon right now and it'll be here tomorrow morning on my front porch before I get up. It'll be there. But are we doing anything more with our time? Even if we have more leisure,
leisure just becomes entertainment and consumption of just, I couldn't even tell you.
It's just consumption. And we had a couple episodes back. It's probably well over a year ago that Zach and I talked. One of them is called something like produce more, consume less, right? And the idea that you have this time now, do something good with it. Oh my goodness, look at what you can do. You don't have to spend all your time harvesting the potatoes. You can go get them, but like at least do something better with your time than looking at cat videos. And
that's the whole point of contributing to society.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that all again circles back to growing the trees for Notre Dame.
Yeah, or growing the chestnuts, right, for our grandkids. And part of me says, oh, I would love to have those chestnuts. But every time I walk or bike on the Monon, I think of the guys who built that railroad, not through the prairie in Indiana, but through the hardwood forest in Indiana. Yep. And you may say Indiana's kind of flat. Well, there are places on this trail that are over creeks that are 40 feet down. And they built those berms up with shovels and horses and wagons. And that's what they did. And every time I ride on that or I drive on a road that guys built, this is something somebody in the past did for me. And now I'm standing on their shoulders. And my job is to pass on the gifts that I have inherited. That's my job. That's it.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking about roadway building. Have you ever seen pictures of like roads in Rome that are still standing from 1500 years ago? And the next to it shows like whatever.
Yeah.
Just full of potholes.
Yeah. Well, but I'll say this. There's a little selection bias in that, right? Because the Roman roads that are no longer existing
don't have 18 wheelers on them.
Yeah. Right. And they don't have, and the ones that are existing, they were the good ones. Right. So, But there are a lot of things that people built back. Look at the Capitol in Washington here in the U.S. was built 200 years ago. Right, the people took the
White
time.
House was rebuilt.
Yes, White House was burned down and rebuilt again.
Canadian friends for that one.
Yeah. So, but I guess what's the lesson here? All right.
So here's what I've got.
Tell me what you wrote down. You said you wrote down your own quote. Okay.
Before we started, which is hopefully sums things up. A lifetime of work is a testament to yourself.
Yep.
Or to the self.
Yep.
Culture and art passed down through generations is a testament to mankind.
The challenge then is to make sure that you are building that culture.
Right.
And I got to say that it probably doesn't come. I can do things rapidly. I can build furniture rapidly. But if I still don't build very good furniture, it's not going to last, right? So I have to build, and I'm finding that even though I can build things fast, sometimes the real value in learning it is to do it in a non-expedient way.
Right.
You get a better feel for the product if you're processing that with if you're putting a little love into it, than if you're just cranking it out. I saw some. Yeah, you might say what you want about Twitter. My Twitter feed is full of so much joy and goodness. I mean, I follow these guys with great art and literature and this civilization kind of wonders thing. I saw some marble statues that were carved. One of them was like a fisherman covered in a net. And it was, I'm sure somebody knows what this is, Bernini or somebody like that. And the guy, like the rope in the net was carved from the rock.
Yeah.
All right. And there's
Michelangelo when he's got the veil carved out. Like
right. Carved out of marble. And then I saw somebody pointed to a video that had a 3D CNC machine that was carving the marble. And it was somebody had built this great machine that can very rapidly crank out marble statues of the quality of Michelangelo. But I'm not sure that they are the quality of Michelangelo, because if I'm sure that there were times he made a little mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And
then it's human.
Yeah. And then
part of being human is making mistakes.
And then how do you adjust it?
Art and culture that represents us. We don't want to exemplify our mistakes, but we should still show that we make mistakes.
And that's part of who we are.
Right.
But the machine will not be moved by a sunrise, or be it the machine may be able to carve a copy of Michelangelo's Pieta, but it won't be able to feel what he felt when he made it. And it won't be able to, it won't know what it made. So I guess work hard your whole life and create more things than you consume. Right.
Right.
And work on cultural things.
Good cultural things.
Yeah. Things that produce beauty and goodness and truth.
Yep.
And then, and plant a tree, and not just a pine tree that you can harvest to make 2x4s. Plant a hardwood tree, or a whole bunch of them, or donate to the Chestnut Fund, and figure out how you can restore the great American chestnut, not for me and not for you and not for your children, but for your grandchildren. And that will be a good thing.
No, I think that is good. And that's what we're looking to do here.
Yes, it is. So after you do all those things, remember, go seek the good, be the good, and spread the good, and enjoy the adventure of life.